waste is a dynamic area of study and opportunity for businesses. But you have to catch the right opportunity and get the right business model. Otherwise, like any other business, you fail. So it's serious, but there are opportunities there. But what I thought I would do is, since Scotland has declared itself committed to a zero waste Scotland, I thought the subject area would be an interesting one, because I've seen Zero Waste Singapore. That's right, yes, I believe that's so. So I'm very keen to talk about whether is that a dream or is that pretty much a reality. Okay? And let me be clear up front. What I'm going to say is that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's about what we actually do and what we actually deliver. And you're going to see that Europe is ahead of UK in many respects in some of the figures I'll show you. And they haven't badged themselves as a zero waste Europe. It seems that it's something that the UK has, or regional governments have chosen, and other nations as well. And they're ahead of the game in many ways. So it's about where we're going rather than how we brand it. And the sad thing is that we all can engage in whether it's a reality or not. But it's really about what we can actually deliver. Let me just tell you a little bit about myself and our team. I'm an academic. We're in a university. We have 13 staff who work around the waste agenda. It's a complicated agenda. There's lots going on. There's recycling programs. How do we improve those? How do we get as much material captured from the public, from businesses, and so on? There's procurement issues, how we write into our contracts that we want recycling and we want performance from our contractors. There's issues around technologies as well. I think Annie was making a point there that energy from waste is technologies, but there is at least half a dozen different kinds of technologies in energy from waste alone. You build a plant, you need feedstock, you need materials. If you don't get that feedstock, your business will struggle. So there's a lot of understanding where a business, a waste management business sits and how that waste management business delivers. I'm going to talk a little bit later on, if we get there, about carbon and waste, because it isn't just about doing good things with our waste, recovering that as a material resource. It really is about trying to understand how much of a contribution good waste management practice can make to reducing carbon emissions. I reckon, did some work for Scotland, and I reckon Scotland could reduce its carbon emissions by 10%. 10% carbon emissions, just by putting in place good recovery of waste, good prevention programs. So there's a big opportunity there for us as waste managers to contribute to climate change. Big opportunity. I'll talk about that later on. And the one thing I do have discovered is that data and data analysis forms the basis of any decision making that we should be making around waste. And one of the biggest challenges we've found is until the last 10 years, we didn't even have weighbridges to measure the amount of waste. But we introduced a taxation system. Her Majesty's Treasury wants to know how much tax we should be paying. Weighbridges went in. So we actually have a very good handle now on the amount of waste that we're generating and the amount of waste we're moving about. A very good handle, and I think that's something to pay attention to. Without that data, how can you make decisions around recycling programs, targeting at populations and communities? How do you know what materials are still in the bin to be pulled out and so on? Data is quite an important issue. John, forgive me for using this slide again, but this was an interesting little story, and it amuses me, and since not many of you heard me this morning, let me tell you the story as an example that this isn't you. And if you go back to your parents' and grandparents' generation, they were far more resource efficient than we are today. Okay, so this is Holyrood Palace in Edinburgh. Any visitors to Holyrood? No? Most of the people visit Edinburgh. This is where the Queen will live. Well, not true, actually. The Queen goes up to the Highlands. But when the Queen is officially in residence, giving out awards, OBEs, MBEs, this is where she stays and does it. Built 1500 by King James IV. And an interesting story was in 1998 they did some refurbishment work on the stone stairs, and they had this idea, as any good resource efficient person said, why don't we rotate the stones and use it again? Good idea, you say. So they dug the stones out, they turned it over, and guess what they discovered? They discovered around 1700 somebody had already done that. Yeah? So maybe our ancestors are not so silly and perhaps more aware of the costs of shipping stones and moving things about. So, interesting little illustration. No more funny slides from now on. Let me describe a story. Scotland actually has a population very similar to Singapore. It's of the order of 5-6 million, 5.5 million. And the amount of waste we generate, interestingly, is getting on for 20 million tons. 20 million tons of waste is generated. And we tend to describe that waste as household, commercial, industrial waste, and construction and demolition waste. Okay? Singapore, I believe, is about 6 million tons. So what's going on there? Why is there a difference? We can think about that. But there's a difference. We're producing 3 times the amount of waste you guys are producing. I personally don't believe that's the case, but something's going on in relation to that. Let me describe some. I've got some slides that are about regulation and control, because that's what drives all of this. That's what makes us change our behaviour. And I'll try and make it interesting, and I'll try and tell you a little bit of a story behind each of the bits of legislation. But we have this landfill directive that came out of Europe. And many of the northern European countries, like Germany, Netherlands, they all implemented it straight away. They already had in place some of the key elements. It was all about how we were going to put waste into landfill. It was about tightening up the standards, fine. It required the pre-treatment of waste prior to landfill, so you just couldn't send it. You couldn't just send waste to landfill. You had to pre-treat it in some way. The English, because Scotland's a devolved administration, our regulator took a different view from the English regulator. The English regulator wanted to see some sorting.